imagine you're going up this elevator, right? So it's like you could have gone up on the first floor and then your life is just a perspective of one floor up. You could have waited a little bit longer and gone up on the 5th floor, waited a little bit longer on the 10th floor, the 20th floor, 100th floor, and it just keeps going up the longer you can stay in this unknown. But it starts to get really uncomfortable and you start to lose air and you start to be like, holy shit, I'm really high and I'm scared that if I fall, this is a really, really high distance right now. So let me just get off to where I know. Let me just jump ship. And it's like very few people will stay to that very top of the elevator and see how far it can take them. I don't think any of us really know. I think our elevators can take us places that we could never really imagine in this lifetime. And that doesn't necessarily mean the most reach or the most money. It looks different for all people. But I would say there's very few people on earth that are really living their fullest potentials.
Just flow, surrender, let go. Just flow, surrender, let go. Just flow, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for. Just flow, surrender, let go. Just flow, surrender, let go. Just flow, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for.
Welcome back to the Highest Self Podcast. My name is Sahara Rose, and in this podcast, we take spiritual concepts that you might be thinking about, feeling, and we make them really modern, fun, relatable, so we can actually be integrated in your life. My name is Sahara. I am an author. I've been doing this podcast for 7+ years, and I'm the founder of Dharma Coaching Institute. And for me, what spirituality and being your highest self, it's not about leaving your body, but rather it's being your fullest expression, your full creativity, your full purpose, your dharma, as I say, your full divine feminine and sacred masculine, letting yourself feel and be it all. And in my life, I've gone through many chapters, many iterations in my journey, from being in my early 20s and experiencing really grave health challenges that led me to discovering Ayurveda, me then wanting to write a book on Ayurveda, but then me experiencing issues with my parents saying, how are you going to write a book? How are you going to make money? You're going to end up homeless. And, really navigating all of the inner child healing and later on ancestral healing that came from forming my own pathway. And continually, life has served me different obstacles and challenges that I have moved through. And as a result, have been on the other side of realizing that life is a continuum and that we're never fully there on the happily ever after, but it's always this constant dialogue, this constant becoming and unbecoming at the same time. And when I recognized this, because before, like earlier in our spiritual journeys, we often think it's like, okay, I'm having my spiritual awakening. And then on the other side, I'll have the money and the relationships and the career and the home and the friends and the things. And what I've recognized is that the moment you get to that thing that you really want, there is something else, another desire that is born. And that desire that is sparked is actually the breadcrumb that is guiding you to that next thing that your soul is here to become. And really, this entire life is about honoring our desires and seeing them as sacred, because the journey of becoming that thing is us living our dharma and is us being of service, because we're showing not only the people in our families and around us, but we're also showing the world that this is possible. So with that, I love having these kind of like big picture conversations, especially with my bestie here, Rosie Acosta, who's on the podcast every month, because we're always voice noting and we're talking about these things and we're like, we need to get this on the podcast. So she's here. We're going to have this conversation about being in the in-between, pivoting, changing. Maybe it's your career direction, your relationship, and how to find peace in that. So welcome, Rosie, back to the podcast.
Yes, always such a pleasure and joy being here. I really love this podcast so much. Obviously, I'm a fan and I love the community. Like, you have such great community, such great people, and I just really love it. Every time I'm on here, I always get really great messages from people, or they're reposting the podcast, and I'm really grateful for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your vibe creates your tribe, and the people that I attract are like the most incredible people ever, because I like to take the veil off and just have these really real conversations and not have it be this like formal interview, but just like what we're actually talking about in our lives. So, a thing for both of us that, and it's interesting because we've been friends now for like 7 years, and we've witnessed ourselves go through different chapters and cycles. And it's funny because whatever like one person is struggling with, like another person will like later on. And it's almost like this continuum that the way that I see it is like we're on this spiral, right?
Okay.
And like, you know, in the mall, like you put in the coin in those like circular things and
Yeah,
then
and
the
then
coin
it
like
goes.
spins and spins to like infinity. Like that's the way that I see life of like, there's all these different corners of like your purpose, your career, your finances, your relationships, your sexuality, your friendships, your home, your inner child, your inner teenager. There's like infinite categories, right? And your attention, which let's say that's the coin, is like going around to those different things. So you might have a chapter of your life that's really focused on your home. Like you were doing home renovations, that it was like home was like front and center in your mind, where I was not even thinking about home at that time. But then the coin moves, and then maybe it's about career, and then it's another time it's about money, and another time it's about friendship, and another time it's about that. And then it spirals and it comes back. And then you come back to those very things, but you deepen and you deepen and you deepen. And it's for the rest of our lives. And when we can accept that we're never fully there, it's just we're going to keep hitting it from a deeper and deeper chord. I feel like there's both ends of it. There's the anxiety of, wow, it's never done. And then there's also this acceptance of like, wow, it's never done. So I don't need to feel like I have to have it all figured out right now.
Yeah, I love what you said, that, you know, we're never there, right? Because there's that in between that you were talking about earlier, and it's the in between that we've talked about before. And I think it's really interesting when we get to this place of wanting to grow. When we're in the middle of a transformation, whether it be a spiritual transformation or a physical transformation or a relationship transformation, there's always this sort of lull that happens, the in-between from point A to point B. Like what happens in that in-between? How do you know when you're in that space? What do you do when you're in that space? Because oftentimes, I can speak for myself, and I know that you've experienced the same thing. A lot of us, and I don't think anybody here loves uncertainty, right? This isn't a thing that we desire for ourselves. Nobody wakes up and says, I really want to be uncertain today, right?
I don't know. I think there are like, I remember in my high school, there was this like group of like surfer boys, and they were like, we love like being in the mystery, not the mystery.
But this is great that you're saying that,
Yeah.
because I was going to make that distinction. I think there's a difference between uncertainty and then being open to the mystery of what can happen.
Yeah, they were very like, it's all about the present, don't plan the future. And I remember me and my friends started a future club. We're like, we love the future.
Such a rebel.
But it was like this interesting dynamic of like, you know, and we can talk more about that, because it's like we're always in the present, but also in the present, we're planning for the future. And like, what's that fine line?
Yeah. Well, if you're planning for the future, you're not in the present.
But then the future, it's if you never plan for the future, then you're not prepared.
Yeah, no, there's a difference between planning for the future. I guess planning for the future and thinking about the future are two different things.
So yeah, I think we can have an interesting debate on this one.
Let's do it.
So I want you to finish your thought.
Okay,
no one likes the unknown.
Nobody wakes up thinking or desiring uncertainty. So when we're uncertain or we don't know what's happening or there is no answers, we tend to go into the archive of the mind and try to find a solution, because that's what the mind does, right? The mind calculates risk. It's there to keep you safe. It's not designed for happiness. It's there to keep you alive. And so when there is no finality to something, or there is no real plan, or there is no real sort of hope for an ending of some sort, let's say you're in between jobs, or you're in between relationships, or you're in between some sort of transformation, you have to be in this in between, because there's no knowing. Nobody comes down and says, it's going to be fine, right? I mean, we tell ourselves that. And a lot of us that believe that eventually get to this place. And I mean, everything ends, right? So there is going to be at some point a finality. Nothing lasts forever. And that could be looked at as a good thing. It could be looked at as a bad thing, right? So I think going back to what I'm saying is that this state of in-between tends to cause a lot of anxiety and stress for most people. I can make that generalization.
Yes.
So
aren't we, when are we not in the in-between? Like,
Right.
have you ever reached a moment in your life, you're
No.
like, I'm there?
Never.
Ever?
No. In fact, yeah, like I love, and maybe we could dig into this a little bit more, because what happens? Like, you wanted to become an author, you wanted to write a book, you did it. Did it completely fulfill everything that you wanted to do?
No. In fact, the day that my book came out, on all of my book launches, I'm like, so this is it? And I know, and I remember telling you that. I'm like, the day that your book comes out, you feel like there's going to be like confetti flying out of the sky, and you're just like, it's just another day. In fact, sometimes it's really hard because we have all these expectations of, is the book going to sell? Is it going to hit New York Times? Is it going to this? And is it going to that? And then we have all of these and I think that's what hurts us about the future. It's expectations on the future. I wouldn't say it's the planning. It's the expectation of, oh, well, because I planned it, this is a guarantee to happen.
Yeah.
You can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. You know?
No, but it's true, right? Like, we can have the best intentions, but as I've said before, expectation is just premeditated resentment. That's all that's going to happen.
It's a true fact. That's a fact right there.
Because we're creating this ideal. And when it gets to that point, it's never going to be as good as when it played out in your mind. Ever.
Because the yearning that drives us crazy is also what turns us on.
Trust flows, surrender, let go. Trust flows, surrender, let go. Trust flows, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for.
Do you hear this voice right here? That's my voice. Yes, I've become a Persian pop star. I am so excited to share with you my debut song that was produced, written, and performed by me, called Trust Flow. So this song is an affirmation that I kept telling myself the year after my divorce, when I was faced with so much uncertainty. Trust, flow, surrender, let go. And if you know me, I love Afrobeats music. I love dancing and whining and having a good time, but I wanted to create something that I felt good about putting into my consciousness. And that's really what all of my music is about, creating music that you want to get stuck in your head, that's raising your vibration. So I'm so excited to share with you my new song, Trust Flow. You can download it and stream it on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you listen to music. I got a music video on YouTube, and I'm so excited to share a piece of my heart with you, and let this be your permission slip that you can evolve and you can allow new iterations of your dharma, your soul's purpose, to come through. So stream Trust Flow wherever you are, and share with me a reel of you dancing along to it on your Instagram so I can see, share, and celebrate you. You can find the direct link to the song in the show notes. It's like, we don't like the uncertainty, but when shit gets too certain, we're so fucking bored with it.
Yes.
So it's like, this is like an existential epiphany. This is a book right here. But seriously, it's like, okay, let's look at it in like relationships, right?
Okay.
Like right now, I'm single and you're in a relationship. And for me, all I want is to meet the man. And, you know, like, it would just be so amazing to be in this divine partnership and da-da-da-da. But I remember being in a relationship and being like, yeah, my launch isn't going well. And it's like, it's like, you're not thinking, you're not like every day waking up, I'm in a relationship. It's just like, you are worried about other things, it's like the mind finds something else. And then so a lot of people, and I remember myself too, who are married in long-term relationships, are like, I miss being single. I miss the freedom of just being able to book a flight, go wherever I wanted, meet someone new, see where it took me, have these unique experiences. Whereas like now I could do that. I'm like, I don't want to even go on a date, Right. So it's like you always want what you can't have.
Yeah.
And, Alan Watts wrote this book called The Wisdom of Insecurity, which is like really about that. And it's a pretty heady book, but it's basically like being a human is living in a constant state of anxiety, because at any moment, anything can happen. And you can die, you can have a catastrophe, but it's also like on the other side of that, I like to think any miracle can happen. We could walk out and, win the lottery, or Oprah chooses us to be on her show, or whatever the hell, and it's like, so can we make that our turn on and the thing that's like anything can happen, or are we like, oh shit, anything can happen?
Yeah. So the ideal then is to be in the turn on as opposed to the turn off, which is when you're in the between. It's the uncertainty, it's the feeling of anxiety, It's the feeling of things are going to go wrong. But
it's transmuting the anxiety into mystery.
Yeah.
So it's what is your, like, to you, what is your relationship to the unknown? When I say the unknown, what emotions does that bring up for you?
Yeah. So to me, I think a lot of it is, I think security, right? Like financial security. I'm older now. I just turned 40 this year. So a lot of, even though up until this point as an entrepreneur, I've been fine. But all of a sudden, this birthday comes along and I start to get into the state of lack mentality. Oh my God, like what's going to happen next year and the economy and look at the interest rates. It's like conversations that I was not having or thinking about when I was 30, right? And just noticing that things change. And what happens is that as you get older, as you get wiser, you tend to become a little bit jaded, right? So for me, and I can be completely honest, obviously we've had these conversations, but I think when I think about the unknown, it's almost like scarier than it was when I was younger because I know what I have to lose, right? The stakes are higher, right? It's not just me, it's my partner, it's my family. Like I still financially support people in my life. Like it's not just me, right? So I go into this place of I have such a larger burden, which means I have to play it safer, which means I have to worry more because in our minds, we worry because we're calculating risk, right? We're worrying because we think the thought is not a fact. But we think that by worrying, we're somehow preparing ourselves for the inevitable or preparing ourselves for worst case scenario. But all you're doing is perpetuating more of the worry, right? You're going into the turnoff phase of this uncertainty.
And then you're actually manifesting it.
And you're manifesting it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's sort of this place where when I think of the unknown, and I know these things, right? Intellectually or even spiritually, I know these things, but they still happen, right? We can voice note each other all day long about, oh, this is what we should be doing. We should, whatever, I should be doing this, or I'm going to focus on this now. And the intention is there. And I think that what helps me in my life is having people that I can communicate with. And I think this is one of my solutions of being in the uncertain state is to have communication with somebody who you can trust and feel held by and not be judged and say the things that are scary. Like I'm feeling really nervous about my financial security right now. And, have that be okay. Like allow myself to be in that space and let that be okay, right? Not let my mind go into the thinking of, oh, well, now what if this is going to go wrong? And now I'm probably not going to get this. And this is probably going to fall through, or this idea is probably going to fail. And I just said this to you before we started. I'm like, I'm going to do this. And if it doesn't work, like I'm already in that phase, right? So instead, I think shifting the mindset to thinking about the positive, thinking about the yearning instead, or the excitement. It's like how I literally created my career, right?
But we go back into it, and I think it's important for people to see is like you've been an entrepreneur for over 10 years and you still get into these things of like, am I meant to be an entrepreneur? This feels really uncertain because the entrepreneurial path is the path of uncertainty. And it brings up all your shit. It's the biggest mirror. And then those moments that you're just like, shit, it was so much easier when I had a 9-to-5 job and I knew I had the check coming in and I didn't have to feel like it all was on me. And the other side of being in that unknown of entrepreneurship is the sky is the limit. Yeah. And you're not just the salary cap that your position can make. You can make infinite amounts in ways that actually could be less work than you've ever worked before. But again, it requires a shift of beliefs. And this is why they say like worrying is like praying for you what you don't want to happen, because you're focusing your energy there. So like when you told me you were having these like fears around like, what if I launch something and people don't buy it, and I'm like, if you even have that thought that like this might not work, then it's not going to work. You have to just radically be like, this is just what's happening. And it might not be the way that you think it's going to happen, but it's going to happen regardless. Done. It already is And so it is. And like, that's the way, like the things I've manifested in my life, for example, writing my first book, there was zero evidence I had never met an author. I knew nothing about the book writing process, never met a literary agent. I was a random 23-year-old girl in India. And I was just like, this book is going to be on the shelves of Barnes and Nobles. I don't know how it's happening, but this is just what's going down. And eventually it took years, but I figured it out because it was like playing a video game. It was like, oh, that road was blocked. Okay, let me find another one. Let me find another one. Let me find another one. And until I did. And it's like, that's really the difference between people who've manifested things in their lives and who haven't. It's just that belief. But then back to going into the unknown, did it look any way that I thought it was going to look? No. Did it come without challenges? No. Did then I wrote the book and my life was happily ever after since? No. It's like, that's the beauty. It's like we can manifest things and still have other areas around us be completely unknown.
Yeah.
So it's like letting go of this belief that if I get this thing, it's like in relationship, for example, I was
gonna say that.
Yeah, like I was in a ceremony and this one girl was talking to this other girl. She's like, I just wish I knew who my life partner was. Like, I just wish, like I've been single. She's in her late 30s. She's like, I just really want to know just so I can be certain about who I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And the girl who was in a relationship was like, I know my life partner and I still don't know if he's going to be my life partner because nothing is sure. So you could be with someone for 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, and it not work. There's never a point in any relationship. And I think that's what we do. We meet someone, we wonder when we're going to go on the date. We go on the date, we wonder when the next one. Go on the next one, are we exclusive? We're exclusive. When are you going to put a ring on it? We put a ring on it. When's the wedding? When's the wedding? When do you have a child? The child, oh my God, I can't wait until they are walking. It's so annoying. They're crawling everywhere. They're walking. I can't wait till they can get to school. I can have some free time again. Mind you, this is the same person who was once wishing, can I stop working to focus on being a mom, is now, can these kids go to school so I can start working? And then they're working. Oh my God, they're growing up so fast. I miss when they were babies. They're out of the house. I just miss their whole childhood. And it's like, we're never satisfied where we are. And it's like, we're like often, I have friends that are moms and they're like, I feel so bad, but oftentimes when my kid is there, I'm not even listening to what they're saying because it's just
when
like
their kid is there.
When their kid is there, I'm not even listening to what they're saying because it's like, I'm just around mom, like baby talk all the time. And then my kid goes to sleep. I'm just looking at pictures of them on my phone. So it's like, you're on your phone when the kid's there. And then you're on the phone when the kid goes to sleep for wanting the thing that you just don't have right now. And it's like, if we can just, it's the perpetual cause of human suffering, but if we can just enjoy where we're at while we are there, our quality of lives would tremendously go up.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, isn't that the dream? I mean, that's the ideal, to be able to, when you're in a relationship, you think, oh, like I'm planning on traveling. I'm like, where are we going next? I'm excited for what's to come. And I want to be able to live a different life vicariously. But for me, I think because I've done a lot of these types of contemplative practices and I've sat in silence for a long time and I've been able to do a lot of that self-inquiry, I do recognize it when it happens. I do recognize it. But even then, for as much air quotes wisdom as I may have, I still obviously fall into this trap of worrying and those lower three chakras, right? Our root chakra, second chakra, and third, the first lower thirds are how we relate to the external world, right? The upper four, heart, throat, ajna, intuition, crown chakra, are how we relate to our internal world, right? So I go down to those lower chakras because I'm feeling that sort of insecurity, and then I don't have a connection to that rooted system. And then everything starts to sort of become imbalanced because I'm only focusing on that, and I'm getting derailed by all the worry and all the thoughts of what's not happening, right? And I think back, it's interesting. I was thinking about this earlier, and as you were talking, it reminded me, of that version of you 7 years ago, and that when we first met, you came to my house and you just told, I'm like, how did you do this? How did you write this book? And you just told me exactly how you did it, and the connect and Deepak Chopra and how that happened, and just this whole thing, and I remember you sitting there, and I almost feel like things, we shed cells, we evolve, we transform every 7 years. We go through these things. And I'm thinking, oh, that was 7 years ago. Our relationship is going through a growth spurt right now. But 7 years ago, I remember feeling the same way. I was kind of going through this transition. I remember you sat there and you were like giving me business advice. You're like, I did Kajabi and this is what you do and set up your
Which literally is what I'm still doing.
Yeah. Well, and exactly. And
last night I'm sending you a Google Doc. Okay, here are your opt-in ideas and this is your upsell.
She sends me a business plan this morning and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm really grateful.
You gotta have a Capricorn in your life.
Right. You have to. But I am grateful for that. It's like to have people in your life that really care and listen and really hold you in that space of the in-between, I think is really important. But it's interesting too, how people have to do things in their own time, and this is something that we've talked about too. I think the interesting thing for me is how it relates to relationships, how we can be a certain way in our business and a different way in our relationships. It's like we can be so confident in this sort of, going back to what you said about the surfers being in this like mystical place. It's like, oh, it's just going to work out. I'm going to manifest it. It's going to be good. But then this other area of our life be like, nope, this is going to go wrong. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like I'm waiting for Tori to realize that, he could do better or, that kind of feeling. So I'm curious for you, if that shows up for you, how do you recognize it? And what's a good way to, get back to that place of being comfortable with the uncertainty?
So a lot of people ask me, how do you just record a solo cast where you're going off cuff, telling these amazing stories, making it really interesting and conversational and funny at the same time? Like, do you have a script? How do you do this? And the truth is, no, I don't. I just enter into this kind of channeled realm and I share with you my process on how I was able to go from an awkward to a confident speaker in my new course, Speak with Soul. So this is a 21-day guided journey that I custom curated just for you, for the people out there who have incredible messages to share, but they feel like their throat chakras are a little bit blocked. They're in their head, they stutter, they don't know how to tell an interesting story. So every single day for 21 days, we're going to be working together in this course. And by the end of it, you're going to record your podcast intro. So if you're ready to get started, head over to speakwithsoulcourse.com. Again, that's speakwithsoulcourse.com. And you can find that link in the show notes. And hey, you better have me on your podcast when you're blowing this shit up.
Yeah, I used to say like our souls chose either like one of two pathways to grow, either like the relationship love pathway or the career dharma pathway. And so for me, I was like, oh, I definitely chose the dharma pathway because my relationship was stable. I wasn't really worried about it, And then it's so funny because like I was having this conversation with this couple, Rachel and Johan, who've been on this podcast before. And I was like telling them that, and they're like, we definitely chose the love pathway. All of our lessons are learned from love and heartbreak. And, that's just their pathway. And then shortly after when I got the divorce, it was like I like shifted pathways. And so now I don't believe it's like one or the other. I think it's both in different times. And maybe it is a 7-year cycle or whatever. It's an astrological thing. But I think there's areas of our lives that are more internally focused and areas of or in time periods of our lives that are more relationally focused. And then there's some of us there's some people who do really well when it comes to their career and they suffer when it comes into relationships. It's not as easy for them. And there's people who are vice versa. So it just really depends on you. I find that when it comes to relationship, whether it's romantic or friendship, there's a lot more uncertainty there because you're dealing with human emotion, which is extremely fickle. It's like the air. It can go any which direction. It doesn't really make sense. You don't really know what's going on in a person's consciousness. All of the you're just seeing the very brink of the ocean, all the layers in between. You don't know their childhood. You don't know their thoughts. So it's like you're really in the true unknown when it comes to relationship. You might put things in stake that create more certainty, having a house together, being married, having shared bank accounts, that would make it maybe a little bit harder for you to part your separate ways, but it doesn't change your emotions.
Yeah.
Being married to someone, having a house or bank account, someone doesn't make you stay in love with them. Case in point, the majority of humans would not be divorced, which now in California, it's 70%.
Yeah.
So I would say there is a lot more unknown in relationships. However, in business, what I have found is because we've often never seen a model of it, that there's like a big gap between the people who actually make it happen and don't. It's like there's a really big void you have to go into of like, you need to repattern your thoughts of how our school system raised us to be, which is like, be an employee, sit down, work the 9-to-5 job. That's why
be a good employee.
Exactly. Corporations created the school system to train us to be initially factory workers and now corporate employees. So it's like, there's a lot of rewriting that you have to do. And a lot of us are the first, entrepreneurs or people like that in our family. However, there is a lot more. It's like, I'm not worried about my business burning overnight. It literally can't, because there's so much work I have done to this point that, I don't know, maybe I could get canceled or something could happen. But it's like, even still to this point, it's like it's not a human emotion that's like, I'm out of love with you. Like, that just can't happen. So I would say the business is like climbing a mountain. It requires a lot more training. It requires going into that void. It requires rewriting a lot of beliefs. But once you have it in place, like for me, I can do my business in my sleep. It's like, I don't need to read books about it. I don't need to focus on it. But there might be a time period in my life that it does become my focus. I decide to build a new type of business, a product business, something I haven't done before. So I would say it is this yin and this yang of the feminine and the masculine. Your business is the yang side of you and the feminine is the yin.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And I like what you're saying about being an entrepreneur as climbing this mountain. And one thing that I have to remind myself is that we don't run up the mountain, we walk up the mountain. And I think that oftentimes it gets a little bit, slippery slope for people. And I think this is where, in order to be an entrepreneur, you have to have that gravitas, yes. I say. Like, you have to have that sort of just tenacity within you to do the things and to be in that uncertain state. But I feel like a lot of people do have that edge. They just don't realize that they do, and if they don't, like, for me, I want to convince myself that I no longer have that. I want to convince myself that I want the safety, that I want to just do my job, and I just want security.
But if you are convincing yourself, it's not true to you, and it will feel suffocating.
Well, right. And we know that. And like, let's be honest, like, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to be happy. We know I'm not going to be happy about it, but I think even in that intellectual experience, while I'm thinking about it, perhaps it's just creating a different assessment for myself.
Well, I would say the thing about the unknown is the longer you can stay in the really uncomfortable parts of it, the more magical your life becomes. So when you're in that unknown that you're just like, I don't know what's happening next. I don't know where my business is going. I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know, I'm in a massive unknown right now in my living in life. The longer I have found that I can stay into it, it's like you're quantum leaping timelines that, like, imagine you're going up this elevator, right? So it's like you could have gone off on the first floor and then your life is just a perspective of one floor up. You could have waited a little bit longer and gone up on the 5th floor, waited a bit longer on the 10th floor, the 20th floor, 100th floor, and it just keeps going up the longer you can stay in this unknown. But it starts to get really uncomfortable and you start to lose air and you start to be like, holy shit, I'm really high and I'm scared that if I fall, this is a really, really high distance right now. So let me just get off to where I know. Let me just jump ship. And it's like very few people will stay to that very top of the elevator and see how far it can take them. I don't think any of us really know. I think our elevators could take us places that we could never really imagine in this lifetime. And that doesn't necessarily mean the most reach or the most money. It looks different for all people. But I would say there's very few people on earth that are really living their fullest potentials. And I have noticed in myself just in this past year of moving and trying really different things in my career and showing up in different ways as myself. There have been moments that you've seen me, especially when I'm like moving Airbnbs, that I'm just like, can I just like get a lease and like stop this chaos? Like, this is too much. I can't handle it. And I'll go there. But then I'll be like, wow, had I not come to Portugal, had I not come to this place, I wouldn't have learned that lesson. I wouldn't have made that song. I wouldn't have had that realization. So the more I can be in this washing machine that's like, kind of like mixing me the fuck up, but also it's making me purified of all of the things that I would have been holding on to. And, and I'm getting a snake tattoo tomorrow. Yes, because it's the shedding of the skin. And like when you can fully let yourself die, you can fully shed that skin. But death is being in that unknown for as long as it takes without any grasp or any grap or any, like, I remember after my divorce, like I shocked myself by how I handled it because I was like, I will die for eternity if that's what it takes. I might never wear colors again. I might never dance again. I probably won't even be funny anymore. But if that's what my new personality is, that's what it is. But I will not bring old me with me anymore. And I believe because I let myself die with no agenda, without any grasping or holding on, that's why I quantum leaped into this new expression that probably would have taken me years to uncover. But I let go of all the baggage and I let go of all the weight and I dove right into it. That, yeah, I'm still in this kind of dance, but now I'm like, I love the unknown. Like the unknown is God to me. I worship the unknown. Whereas before I would have said the unknown is really freaking scary, but I've seen the unknown has actually given me everything I ever wanted. Things that I never thought I could even have in this lifetime. I could get emotional talking about this, but like, I never knew I could make songs. Like I was always told, you have a bad voice, you know? I never thought I could make music. And now I made 6 songs just this summer, you know? I never thought I could talk about sexuality and sensuality publicly. I'm like, I'm Middle Eastern. Like I remember reading someone's book, Melissa Ambrosini's book in 2018. I'm like, maybe in the next lifetime I can do that, but I can't because I'm Iranian and, you know, my family and blah, 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 my in-laws. And here I am talking about yoni mapping and, you know, kink and this. And it's like, had I not had to have gone into the unknown, which was a lot of death and a lot of grief and uncertainty and pain and suffering, because that's also in the mystery bag of the unknown, I wouldn't have had this life that I never even believed myself to be capable of in this lifetime already. That I can't even imagine what my life will look like in 3 to 5 to 10 years. I'm like, oh my God, if it's this magical now, if this is who I've become now, if I'm more in love with myself now than ever before, and I'm just getting started, keep bringing the unknown on, baby, because all the magic is in this box.
Yeah, I think that there's something so key in this transformation, and it has been. I mean, the old Sahara is dead, my friend.
The old Taylor is gone.
I'm sorry I can't come to the phone right now. The old Sahara is gone. She's dead. She's
Bye-bye.
buried. And I love this new you, this new version of you who, yeah, I mean, I remember soon after that happened, I remember you calling me one time and saying that you don't feel like dancing. You're like, am I ever going to want to dance again? Like, am I ever going to want to twerk again? And it broke my heart because I'm like, oh my God, like this is what's happening right now. Like this is a reality. And maybe she doesn't ever want to do that again. You know, I'm glad that you made it through that.
She came back in full effect.
She came back full force.
I'm never gonna dance again. Guilty feet have got no rhythm. But it's true. It's like when you're in that throes of the unknown, you're like, I have no idea who I'm going to become.
Yeah.
You can't pick. You're not in the unknown if you're picking and choosing.
Okay,
you're not dying if you're like, I'm going to die for a little bit, but then come back shinier than ever and plan might come back already. That's not what letting yourself be in the death portal is. And death and unknown are synonymous. You can't be in the unknown without being in the void. And it's like, what is the void? It's like the void is, you know, that moment before orgasm that you don't know if you're going to make it, that you're like in that like dark valley of mystery of like, will it be here? Will it not? And it takes you on a surprise. That's why in French they call it le petit mort, the little death. And it's like, what is death? Why do we meditate? Why do we do plant medicine? It's so we can experience death in this lifetime while we're still alive, so we're no longer so afraid of it. And the less fear we have of death, the more when life brings us these challenges and obstacles, instead of like clinging on to the former reality, we're like, let me surrender into this because I know it wouldn't be here if there wasn't a reason. And often these deaths, they were tapping on your window long before, but you weren't paying attention until it needed to be this big experience because that's the level it took for you to finally listen.
Damn, mic drop. I have nothing to add to that. I think it's beautifully articulated, and sometimes, yeah, those little tappings are more of like a baseball bat to a window. They happen to you, or for you.
Yeah. Well, because there's other people involved in our karma. I think we have soul contracts with different people who are here to activate us. And sometimes it's in the hurt that they create in us, the betrayal and the wounding. But that's the wake up call that our soul needed. It's like maybe as souls up in the ethers, you had this agreement of like, I'm going to break your heart in this way, but that's going to make you become who you always wanted to become. And it's like, I love you so much. And that's why I'm going to do this.
That I kind of disagree with that a little bit.
Okay, share your opinion on that.
Well, no,
because the difference is and we're going to do our next podcast about this, is I really believe in destiny and dharma and soul contracts and the bigger purpose, whereas you see it as more like it just happens.
Yeah. It's a more sort of maybe nihilistic view of it. You have to have a little bit of a nihilist in your life, I think, occasionally.
So you think someone, breaks our heart and there's no real reason behind it. It just is. And it's the story that we create from it.
I think there's nothing wrong about us deriving meaning, because that's what we're wired to do as humans. And I'm also a spiritual person. So I do believe that there is meaning behind it. I just don't know. I think it's just very egocentric for us to believe that, like, I guess if somebody's doing something to you for you, you're learning a lesson. I just feel it's a little bit egocentric for me to think of myself as I'm coming into this person's life and I'm going to teach them a lesson.
But I don't think we consciously hurt people because we think we're teaching them a lesson. I think there's bigger forces at play that we actually always think we're doing the right thing. Always.
Right. So you're saying that there's
a greater force that's making you want to do this thing that you don't realize that is hurting someone, or you've justified that why it's hurting someone because you see yourself as the victim in some type of way. That I think there's just like, we're almost like the mannequins of this larger force that's playing consciousness through us. And I believe that we came into this earth in soul clans, and there's like different souls that you're going to experience like almost every relationship with. Like you and your mother may have been sisters in a lifetime, lovers in a lifetime, siblings, like coworkers.
We're sort of reincarnating entire communities.
Like maybe
together.
We were married. We were like, I don't know. I don't believe in that spiritual shit you're saying. Ricky, just sit down, have some sweet lemonade. I can so see us. It's like old people like arguing back and forth.
Exactly. No, I hear what you're saying, and I see what you're saying. And I'm not saying it's not accurate.
We don't know. No one knows. It's ultimately what makes, and it's like, the thing is, my life has been so magical that it's like the times that I try to convince myself of like, yeah, I guess that was just a coincidence. It's like God does these things and I'm just like, she's like, okay, this is, for example, the other day I was in Montreal by myself, and even me being in Montreal, like I got this DJ gig headlining at this festival. And when I actually got the email for the festival, I was in the darkest portal of my life. And it was like right when I realized that this divorce was happening, and I was so sad. And I got this email, and they're like, we want you to be the headline DJ. And it's like the bittersweet reality of existence of like, there's something so sad and so exciting happening at the same time. And it's like Mark Nepo says this quote of like, life is so beautiful and I'm so sad. And it was like one of those moments right there. And I remember just like, okay, like I'm crying and I'm also like excited for this thing, both and then finally, the day 9 months later, the day came that I was doing this. I'm in Montreal and I'm doing this DJ set, and I freaking crushed a 2-hour-long set, and I took myself to dinner in Montreal. And that day I've been really feeling like this draw to go to Iran, which is where my parents come from. And I was talking to you about it, and I'm voice memoing you, and I'm like reading like these Iranian like scripts, and I've been listening to a lot of Iranian poetry, and like even in my head, I'm like, I'm going to start talking in Farsi in my thoughts. Like because I speak Farsi, but I think in English. So I was just like going through this like Persian renaissance within myself, especially that day. And then I just decide after dinner, I'm just going to walk around the streets. I'm walking around the streets and then I see there's like a Ferris wheel. I'm like, let me just like go walk all the way to that Ferris wheel. It looked like there was nothing around there. I walked to the Ferris wheel and then, it was like a God is my Dom moment. God was like, take a left. And I did take a left. I keep going. I'm like in a field at this point. And all of a sudden I hear some like Middle Eastern music. And I sent you a video of it. I was like, oh, it's some sort of like Islamic concert going on. That's the first thing that I saw. So I went, I watched, and then I heard like some Arabic music. And then I realized it was this massive Middle Eastern carnival of every Middle Eastern country being represented with music and dance with a full Iranian concert with like hundreds of Persian people singing and dancing and Persian art and costumes and food and like it was like I was in Iran. And God was like, oh, you want to go to Iran? Like, we're going to take you to Iran right now. Like, could any human have planned that date? No. God is like, I'm going to make you a carnival.
Yeah, but yes.
Could that have been a coincidence that Montreal is going to have their Iranian parade on a random Sunday night, the day that you decide you want to go to Iran?
Right. See, but here's the thing. You're a magical person.
But am I magical or am I just trusting and listening?
Yeah, yes.
So it's showing up for me more.
Yes, it is. And I think that for you, these coincidences, it's like we can't even call them coincidences.
It's a daily
anymore.
occurrence.
Yeah, because it's happened so consistently, so frequently the last 8 months that even me, my little inner Buddhist that wants things to be like this and that,
like, oh,
and
shit,
just black and white. I'm like, wow, this is real. This is real magic happening. And I think that I guess the reason why I have to remain skeptical of it all, but not for you, is because you're so committed. Like you're so devoted.
But that's the thing. When you decide something is your reality,
yes.
and so it is.
And so it is.
Yeah.
And I 100% believe that. Yeah. See? So I do believe that and I do agree with that. I think that my sort of role as the representative of a large population is that it takes a lot for a person to get to that place, right? I think that it's easy.
But it's a chicken and egg. You don't wait for life to get magical and then believe in magic.
Right.
You got to start believing in magic.
This is true, and I've had some magical things happen as well.
Girl, you literally, can you just tell them how when we were in the Panchakarma, how you astral projected and watched what we were all doing?
This is very intense. A quick story. You can read about it in my story on Yoga Journal when I was on the cover of Yoga Journal magazine, which I think is hilarious that made it in the story.
It's a good story.
We went to this Panchakarma. For those of you that don't know, Panchakarma in the house of Ayurveda is sort of like this cleansing system that is created for you to clear and create clarity. And it's supposed to allow you to remove blocks and sort of be in the state of enlightenment, we'll call it. And Pancha means it's the number 5, and karma, we know what karma is. And so the whole idea is that you have these 5 different types of cleansing techniques to take you through this experience where you're purging, essentially, in many different ways. There's a lot of purging happening.
You're going to get oil in your nose, in your ears, in your every crevice.
Everything is happening at all in different moments, but all at the same time.
You might get a little boop boop.
Yeah, you might get a little boop boop boop. Oh, that was the other one we went to. We've been to several.
We do Panchakarma hopping.
We're due for another Panchakarma. Okay, so anyway, we went to, I believe we were in the
Art of Living Center.
Yeah, Art of Living Center in the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina. And we're going through this cleanse experience. And on this day, I believe we had a day of silence. So we were, and isolated. So noble day of silence, but you weren't doing the full thing, I think. And our friend Allie and I were doing the whole thing. Like we were in it, right? And so I decided, okay, I'm in this state. And, we had been cleansing for days now. I think this was the 5th day. And we're in silence. And I'm sitting there meditating. By the way, I had some pretty deep experiences. And anytime I go on silent retreat, which I try to do often, it's my way of like reconnecting to myself, nature, God, the divine, everything. I have these magical moments happen. And I have really interesting things that happen because I think that that's what you're saying is maybe the listening gets really amplified. So I really always recommend people have these moments of silence and these moments of stillness. So I'm having my moment of stillness and silence. And all of a sudden, I'm kind of tired, but I'm kind of not. It's almost this sort of between sleep and awake, but I'm seated. And then I just start to feel my body, my spirit essentially leave my body. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. And in the experience, it almost felt dreamlike. So I think that my logical mind was like, this is a dream. So let's pretend like your experience is a dream, even though it very much felt like astral projection, which I've had another experience, so I can call it what it is. And so I went and I visited our other friends that were with us. We had 2 other friends that were with us, and I'm observing all the friends, right? I'm seeing what they're doing. I'm seeing them in their room, and it's almost like I'm watching from a higher vantage point, like a aerial view. And then all of a sudden I hear Sahara's voice, and I'm taken to the gym where I see her on the elliptical machine wearing a hat, like exactly the outfit that she was wearing that day, which I had not seen her because I was in my room and in silence. And I see her speaking in Spanish, which she speaks very well. She's very fluent. And at this time, I think she was in the middle of planning a wedding in Mexico that ended up not happening, but it was during this time period. And she's on the phone, and I know she's talking to a wedding planner or somebody in this, because now I'm watching her have this conversation, and she's on the elliptical and she's saying something, but then at the end she says, hasta luego. And then she hangs up, and then I'm taken back into my body and I'm taken back into my room. And then I opened my eyes and I thought, wow, that was really strange. And then, I just proceeded with my day. And then I think the next day, once we were out of our experience, we're having breakfast, and I start to talk to them about what was happening. And Sahara's face, her jaw just completely dropped. And she was like, wait, what time was this? What were you seeing? What did you see? And it was, you can continue.
I was shocked because I was on the elliptical at that time. I was talking to a photographer for an engagement shoot that we were doing there. And something at the end of the conversation came through me to be like, hasta luego, which in like an American accent, which like I speak Spanish. I would never be like, hasta luego, but like it just came through, And the fact that you even like heard that means your soul was above me, watching me. And our other friend who was there, Tara, you saw her like lying naked, like on her bed with like pillows all around her. And that's exactly what she was doing.
Yeah.
So it's like, we can't not believe in magic. It's just when you are quiet enough to listen, you are literally astral projecting. So it's just, we are so busy in our daily lives that we miss these magical experiences. And I think we all have different ways of doing it. Like I think you obviously have an astral projection gift, That's probably part of your thing. For me, it's like channeling, and it's conversations. It's very like, I'm always talking. I'm like, show me a sign. Lots of numbers, always. Every time I look at a clock, it's like 11:11, 2:22. And it's like specific numbers, like 14 is one of my numbers, 7 is one of my numbers. And it's like always the affirmation. When I remember sharing this with you when I was in Austin, I saw my initials on license plates every single day, like all 3 of my initials. And it's like, things that like I have a thought and the thing shows up. I mean, so many that I don't even know where to start because it's a daily occurrence that now it's just expected, So, and I can also feel like the other end of that when something is feeling off. Like if I think, for example, I was like, I'm going to live in Lisbon. I hadn't even been in Lisbon before. And I got to Lisbon. It was like my bags got lost at the airport, and it just like wasn't panning out how I thought. And it was just like, I know that the way that my energy flows is like I experience Kriya when I'm in alignment, which is boundless action, synchronicities, and I experience karma when I'm not. Then I'm like, okay, thank you for telling me. And then I get a call with a talent agency for London, and then my other friends in London, and London. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to London next, and we'll see what happens from there. And then you get the affirmation of someone was like, you should do an astrocartography session. My friend Gala Darling was like, I'm moving from LA to Miami because of this astrocartography session. She linked me up with her person who's going to be on the podcast. She's like, your Jupiter and Venus line run through 2 cities. I'm like, what are they? Lisbon and London. It's like, you can't make this shit up.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, trust in the unknown, because what is in the unknown is a deeper knowing. It's not actually really unknown. It's creating space to hear something that you can only hear in whispers. When you meditate and you let go, even just for one day of your phone and you're freaking astral projecting, you're knowing things that you could have never known. So actually the unknown, what I'm realizing now, is an illusion. There is no unknown.
There is no unknown because you know everything.
You know everything.
But that's the highest. That's what we talked about the other night or the day when I was at your place. This sort of idea of like, it's your highest good. See, I call it your highest good. You're calling it your highest self. And I think that ultimately there is that soul knowing. It's the soul knowing, right? So I think that's where we tie the spirituality back into this state of the in-between. We have to go back to our spiritual self. We have to go back to that soul, that knowledge, that wisdom, that ancient knowledge that we have within our DNA.
Well, because what the unknown does is it cuts cords with all former realities. It cuts cords with friends, homes, relationships, ways of being. So you need that to step into what your soul knows is next for you. Those things just can't move forward with you anymore. So when you are in the unknown and you are in your void, trust that your soul has a GPS that is guiding you to the next thing, and notice the synchronicities and notice the signs and notice the awareness that you're having. Even notice the triggers. Like, I can use a dating example. If someone's rejecting you, what are the thoughts that are coming up? That's exactly what you get to heal. When there is space, an unknown, is he going to call me? Is he not? What's coming up in your consciousness? Because those are the things that get to be purified. And that spaciousness, that unknown, is bringing all of the stuff that are like these really like concrete beliefs that you've had for so long that without the spaciousness triggering them would have just remained in you forever. So your soul knows the unknown. Your soul chose that path. And also it's always choosing it. I do think there are periods of life that are like a lot more unknown than others. Like right now, I'm in a very unknown period, I would say, with like moving and and you're in a little bit more of a known, but it's like, but then there's like we went back to at the beginning, it's like little pinpoint areas of like yours is career, mine is not career right now, you know, and then we might flip flop later on in life. So just embrace the unknown, let it be your turn on, and trust the guidance that's coming through. And so it is.
So it is.
I'm a believer.
We didn't sing our song.
Which song?
I don't remember what it was.
Oh, there was a song that you wanted to sing about the unknown.
Because it was like, no, because we're in the in-between. Damn. Now I can't remember.
It was like a Justin Timberlake song?
No. It's fine.
Okay.
Anyway.
I made it through the wilderness. You know I made it through. So... yeah, that was not the song.
Anyway. No, that'll make it in our bloopers. Okay. I want some good bloopers for us. We need some good, like, real bloopers.
Okay. Well, they just have to happen. Okay, well, anyways.
We're too serious. I think we're too, like, to the point to be like, nothing matters. Everything is fucked.
/ everything's amazing.
Yeah. Sort of just, you know what I realized? We make a good sort of, I think, a good juxtaposition.
Yes, devil and an angel on your shoulder.
But it's interesting because I think there are a lot of ways in which we complement each other when it comes to problem solving.
Like when we have something that we need to solve, we're always going to choose the same team. Like whatever your obstacle is, I'm going to take your back. But then when it's these existential things, I think we just decide to go the opposite way.
Yeah, maybe
we just want to like spice it up.
Yeah, I think we're
like unknown, known bitch.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think too.
But then we hype each other up at the same time.
But I think it's just because we like a healthy conflict in a relationship.
Exactly.
You know, and
yeah,
I think
it's boring if we were just agreeing.
Yeah, always just like in a little silo of our own making that we're just constantly agreeing. But what I do notice, I'm like, oh, but I know what our faults are too, you know, because
what are we have faults? Us?
I mean, there are just areas that I could see improving, like the fact that we're both very reactive.
I wouldn't say so.
Oh, come on. Seriously.
I remember my ex saying, Rosie just agrees with whatever you say.
Really?
I'm like, and so she should, because we're both right all the time.
I mean, really, that's the only reason. I mean, if I didn't think you were right, I would tell you.
Yeah, it's true. But like we do hype each other up.
That's true. And
But
I
like
think
that's what besties are for.
this is true, and I could see us going into a spin, and I'm saying reactive because it's like, but there's moments when I feel like I'm not the right person to be asking this question.
Yeah.
I'll say it, because
Well, I mean, yeah, if I asked you out dating advice, you're the wrong person. You're like, I dated once when I was 18.
I'm like, I don't think I'm the best person.
You're blind
for
leading
this.
the blind. We're like, how does the world work?
How do you do this? And I'm like, I wouldn't be doing this. Or I wouldn't be posting this.
Don't ask you anything.
Why did you do this? But then I won't give you advice. But then months later, I'll be like, why did you do that?
Months later, you're like, yeah, January 2023, you were not doing so hot. Like, why didn't you tell me?
But Jan 2023, I'm like, you're doing great, babe. This is amazing. You're so good. You're doing great, sweetie.
But I think that's what friends are for. It's also like watching you in different stages of your life in the unknown. You know?
Well, just coming back to, just bringing it back full circle, this whole idea of, the in between, right? I mean, I think, again, I'll go back to what I said. The most important facet for me in the in between is being able to have somebody to communicate with. I think communication is key. Feeling support of your tribe is key. Being able to accept what it is key. I think embracing where you are in this moment is key. And I think also allowing yourself to be accepting of yourself and not judge yourself for being in the in-between. Because I think that can really get, it can take you down if you focus too much on, I should be happier, I should be like higher vibe, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, I don't want to be, negative Nancy or whatever. I probably shouldn't be saying those names because I don't know if that's like,
we love you,
triggering for
Nancy.
people. I mean, it's like, I'm also 40, right? So there are those certain things, those certain relatable
you're not allowed
things.
to say anymore. Nancy's united. We don't want to be negative.
I know, we don't want to. I know it's true though. So I think that sort of this component of, like allowing yourself to be in the space that you're in.
Yeah.
And believing in the magic.
And I think also that's what the beauty of opening up with these conversations, because like, for example, a friend of ours, Cassandra, who I've also been friends with for 7 years, it was so interesting because the first half of our friendship, the first 3-4 years, she was single. And I'm in a long-term relationship. So she would always tell me the dating and who's going to be my man. It was like, and I love talking about that stuff, So it was like so fun for me. And now it's like so interesting because I'm like, it flipped and I'm like, I hate being single. I'm just done with it. Can I just like go back? And she's like, damn, I miss being single. That was fun. And I'm like, you don't remember all the complaining you did to me? And it's like, and it was such a and that's the beauty of having these long-term friendships. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to be in that position one day of, the long-term relationship and the same old and like missing this time period that I'm in. And it's like these time periods of the unknown of, maybe a breakup, moving to a new place, like you only have these periods in your life like every so often.
Yeah.
It's like we so badly want to get out of them.
Yeah.
And like be back to like the routine. And then we always look back on them as like the most exciting times of our lives that like all of our stories are from. So if you're in that period of your life that all your stories are from, I know it's freaking scary and it's a lot. And there are times that you're just trying to like cling on to a lease or something. And it's like, ride the wave, make the stories that you want to tell one day. This is your time to quantum leap. So with that, thank you so much for being here, Rosie. We're going to put your website in the show notes so people can connect with you and do your incredible meditations. And if you love this episode, please share it with your friends. It's a really good way of putting out your feelers out there of the aligned, unknown bad bitches so you can all come together and make love to the cosmic mystery, because what else is there to make love to? And if you love this episode, please leave a review for it in the iTunes store, and I will send you my womb meditation, which is a meditation to connect to the cosmic void within you, which is your womb space. We all have this empty space within us that's literally a portal, a hologram, a 3D printer of life. So you get to connect to this womb space and ask her questions to receive her answers. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you have a physical womb or not. We're all connected to the cosmic womb. So leave a review on the iTunes store, take a screenshot and send it over to me at Sahara@IamSaharaRose.com. You can find that email and all the links I mentioned in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.
Trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen. Surrender, let go. So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your